What's up, everybody, and welcome back to the Mind Hiking Podcast. I'm your host, Brody Frye. Happy Wednesday, and wow, listening back to this episode, it's messy. I went all over the place. I was distracted halfway through. I did have to do a clip just because I had a guest show up while I was in the middle of recording, but it was, I think that the meat of this episode is a really good episode. It is. The message is good. It's just a little sloppy. Just needed to have some loose ends tightened up, and it could be good. But just stay with it. It's a good message. It's just a little sloppy, and I was kind of in a bit of a time crunch recording it, so. Lots of tangents, but still a good message through and through. So hopefully you guys enjoy it and stay tuned. Hello and welcome, everyone. I'm your host, Brody Frye, and here we dive deep into difficult questions. We'll map out thoughts, theories, and crazy ideas for the love of knowledge and growth. So, how do we answer some of the mind's toughest questions? This is the Mind Hiking Podcast. Welcome back, everyone. Has life been kicking your teeth in lately? Well, it comes in waves. I feel like it can also last longer the way you react to it. I feel like the way we respond to certain outcomes or certain scenarios has a big factor on what's going to happen in the future. We can only control our own response to things, our own reaction to things, and that definitely plays a big role in the future, because that sets the tone and your mood for where you're at now, which is obviously a huge foundational portion of your reaction to the future when it gets here. But sometimes it seems like you can do everything right, but everything else keeps going wrong. Like you do everything that you think is the best you can do, and even looking back, you look back and you're like, if I could do that again, I would do it the exact same way, but I don't know why it didn't work out the way it worked out. Like if you could plan it perfectly and you execute it perfectly and you're happy and you're proud of yourself for the way that you executed something, but it still just didn't work out, or something went wrong, or things just didn't work out, or people didn't get along, or whatever the case may be. Sometimes that's just the way it is, and sometimes I feel like God can have a sense of humor. I think that, and especially in cases where you say something specifically, and then like however long later that exact same thing happens, or you say everybody always calls it jinxing it. Like, oh, you just jinxed it. And I feel like that's just God's sense of humor, and we just call it jinxing it, where like, why is that the case? Why? Obviously there's a bit of truth to everything that's said, everything that's stated. There's like old sayings and things like that, things that people say, sayings, just sayings that people say. There's bits of truth to all of it, and that's why they're sayings. That's why so many people use it or say it, and I feel like that's a good reason what that means. But again, that has to do with how you handle the situation, because you can, like, a situation where say that you jinxed it and something happens again, or something happens that you said isn't going to happen, or whatever the case may be, and it does, sometimes you got to be able to laugh at it. Sometimes you got to be able to laugh at yourself. Sometimes you got to be able to, I don't know why. Sometimes I always get this sense of like there's more observing than just the life on this planet. Like there's dimensions that we can't see, which I talk about a lot on this podcast. I have a lot of episodes on dimensions, very in depth. So you could probably just search dimensions in the podcast search bar and find multiple episodes on dimensions that I have. But sometimes I feel like there may be. It's totally possible. I don't know why I'm dancing around the topic right now, but it's more than likely that God exists and is watching us, just as we can see a piece of paper. But if there was a being on a two-dimensional piece of paper, all it could see was that, like, if you put another dot on that piece of paper, it would just see something blocking its vision right there, because it's just a two-dimensional, like, film that is blocking its vision from that. So anything behind that dot it couldn't see two-dimensionally. It can't look up, it can't look down, it can only look around that two-dimensional plane. Or if you put the piece of paper on a wall, then it would be like it could only look up and down technically. But that's to our perspective. That's not to that thing's perspective. Whereas we can move up, down, left, right, forward, backwards, but we can't move inward or outward. Like, there's more dimensions. There's literally more dimensions, but like, I don't want this to be a dimensions episode. I got too many of those anyways. But the fact that a being could be watching us or observing us and actually caring and paying attention to and maybe putting input into our individual lives is totally a possibility as well, and probably more than likely. But I get this sense that, again, I'm not dancing around now, but I'm just going on a long tangent. Moral of the story is, a lot of times it seems as though we're being watched from something more than what we can see. And I get that sense, that feeling often, especially in times where you jinx it and something happens where it's like, man, that is just too weird for something not to be watching that and knowing what just happened. Like, it's like God's got a sense of humor, because that's just too funny or too much of a coincidence for that to, and not only too much of a coincidence, but everybody's got a story like that. Everybody's got a coincidence story. So there's just too many reasons for that to not be the case. But going back to how we respond, it's, with that being said, with God watching us, our response to circumstances is crucial, because this life is just one big test. And this is a sloppily put together episode, and I apologize for it. But really, where I was trying to go with this episode, this whole opener portion was pretty sloppily done. I'm sorry. But where I wanted to go with this episode is being persistent and being confident with what you're doing and moving forward. Because life does want to beat you down, drag you down. There's a spiritual warfare constantly going in our mind, constantly and forever. We're being tugged and pulled from both sides, and we don't have the power that these spiritual warriors, whatever you want to call them, call them angels and demons, but whatever it is causing this spiritual warfare in our head, we don't have the power they do. We don't have the power that they have to give us visions or give us ideas or whisper in our ear and have us come up with like good ideas or terrible ideas, like harmful ideas, things like that, like things that you would never come up with on your own. But that doesn't mean that we're helpless. We do have authority over these spirits. We don't have power. We don't have the power that they have, but we do have authority. We have the say. We can control what we think, and if something intrudes, we can control that thought and our actions and decide whether or not to push it away, or we have authority over our minds, which is much, much better, much better than the power. And with that said, with that authority is great responsibility. And just like Spider-Man, almost, with great power comes great responsibility. Blah, blah. But still, that is a lot of responsibility, and just another reason why I see this as one big test to see how we use our authority. How are we using our authority? How are you using your authority? Are you using it for good? Or are you using it for evil? Are you idly neutral? Are you sitting there letting evil happen around you? And you think you're good because you're not partaking, but you're just idle? Are you fighting for good? Are you doing good? There's a lot of different ways to approach this. I think you can be a warrior. I think you can be a fighter. I think you could also serve. I think you could also spread the word, spread kindness, be a mentor or a teacher. There's a lot of things you can do that's good. But how are you using this power is the gist of it. This authority. How are you being responsible with it? What are your decisions? What are your actions? You've been given a gift, and how are you treating it? Who are you as a person? And I think that's what this all comes down to. And that's why when you sit there and you go through life and it's super hard and it feels like it never ends, and you're trying and things just don't work out, and it's just like one thing after another, like, and all this hardship never stops, it never ends. That's because this isn't where we're supposed to be. This is just the test. It's like a placement test. It is hard. It's designed to be hard. It's designed to test us. It's designed to show our character. If you just had a super easy, simple test, you're not going to see. It's like an interview for a job. You don't know who the person is just from an interview, or even 2 or 3 interviews. You don't know who they are until they're actually in the job doing it. then you really see who the person is. And that's what life is. You really get to see who each and every person is. It's not supposed to let up or get easier, or it's supposed to be this way. And that's why it's so important to stay persistent and consistent and use that authority for good. Because this all matters. It's just one big test. God wants to see who you are. And you have the authority over your mind to decide who that is. And there is a battle in your head, all around us, everywhere. Demons attacking our thoughts all the time, trying to steer us from good. And the hard thing is, they come in the form of your thoughts. So you think it's you thinking that. And they come in the form of ego. So it hurts when you do otherwise. When you do what these demons are specifically saying not to do. When you choose to be good, when you hurt your ego, the demons are coming in the form of your identity, and that's why it seems to hurt. But did you ever notice the lightness you feel after you hurt your ego? It hurts, and then all of a sudden it lightens up because that demon's gone, because the demon lost. But it's subtle. It's just like a weight off your shoulder. It's things like this that a lot of people don't even notice. It's all so subtle. There's a battle. And the demons don't need to, prove that they exist. They don't need to prove they're real. They don't care about that. They just want to trick you into doing evil. And a lot of times they leverage selfishness to do so. Because the only thing they're trying to do is steer you from God. They don't need to prove that the devil exists. They don't need to prove that they exist. They just gotta, if they can prove that, if they can do their best to convince you that God doesn't exist, then they've won. They don't care what you believe as long as you don't think God exists, then they've won. They don't care if you believe in them or the devil. They just want to get you away from God. So they come in the form of you and trick you. And weak people let them win. People that are afraid to question and think for themselves. And if that hurt you, hearing this, then that's one of them inside of you right now. But we're rooting for you. And I got your back. This is a journey that I'm on currently, so after I announced my baptism, there's been a target on my back for sure. But that's a good thing because that means that I made the right choice. Because all that means is that I'm valuable and my soul is valuable, and I see that more and more. So I know I'm doing the right thing. So I told my beautiful fiance this was going to be a short episode because I kind of squeezed this episode in here, even though I didn't really have that much time to record, but it went a little bit longer than I told her. So just a little rambly this today, I guess. So thank you guys for tuning in. Love you all. Fight the good fight. We're all here for each other. We can do the best we can, and just stay strong, stay persistent, do what you got to do, and think twice about the decisions you're making, because you might just surprise yourself. Happy Wednesday, and we will see you guys next week. Thanks for tuning in, and peace out.